On the news at 10, we're staying in Abuja, where, as it stands, the ruling All Progressives Congress can now conduct its planned national convention come 26th March. And this happened on the day a high court in the Federal Capital Territory vacated an order stopping the national convention of the party billed for March 26. And while delivering judgment on the matter, Justice Bello Okawo argued that a political party cannot be sued by its member. The judge relied on the recent Supreme Court judgment, that of Aguma versus APC, to conclude his ruling. The ruling followed the twists in the leadership of the ruling party as it plans for the convention. Recently, there were tussles over the leadership of the party when Governor Sani Bello of Niger State took over as the acting national chairman of the APC in the absence of the caretaker extraordinary convention planning committee of the party, Governor Mai Malabuni of Yobe State. But that has now been settled, as Governor Buni said all actions taken by his Niger State counterpart remained valid. He reiterated that he duly transmitted power to Governor Bello, who acted on his authority while he was away. Meanwhile, the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, has been ordered by the Federal High Court sitting in Umuahia, Abia State, to immediately delete Section 84, subsection 12 of the Amended Electoral Act. Justice Evelyn Ayadike earlier today held that the section was unconstitutional, invalid, illegal, null, void, and of no effect whatsoever, and therefore cannot stand because it's in violation of the clear provisions of the Constitution. The section says no political appointee at any level shall be voting delegate or be voted for at the convention or congress of any political party for the purpose of the nomination of candidates for any election. TVC's Prince Uba has details.
Last month, President Muhammadu Buhari signed into law the long-awaited Amended Electoral Act. The president raised serious concern on Section 84, subsection 12, which he said is in variance with some of the provisions in the 1999 Constitution as amended. President Buhari went ahead to write both chambers of the National Assembly seeking amendment of the section, but the Senate rejected the president's requests. Worried by this development, a legal practitioner, Nduke Dede, headed to court for nullification of that section, which the court agreed with him. Reacting to the judgment, counsel to the plaintiff, Emeka Ozan, stated that the National Assembly is not required to further make any amendments to the section.
It's inconsistent with the rights of Nigerian citizens when read with Section 66 of the Constitution, 107, 137, 182, and now nullified Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act. And as equally has ordered the Attorney General of the Federation to delete Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act forthwith. Now, the implication of this is that it has provided a congenial atmosphere for politicking and political space for 2023.
Counsel to the Attorney General of the Federation, Chris Level, also agreed with the judgment.
Originally, we honestly believed that it was inadvertence on the part of the National Assembly. It was a big error. And being gentlemen and distinguished senators and the members of the House, I think they will now go back and do the right thing, since the court has made pronouncement on it, and that put to rest every other issue regards to that, so that we can move on with the national issues that are besieging us as a country and as a nation.
The presiding judge, Evelyn Anyadike, holds that the Constitution has already stipulated that appointees of government seeking to contest elections were only to resign at least 30 days to the date of the election, and that any other law that mandated such appointees to resign or leave office at any time before that is unconstitutional, invalid, illegal, null and void. Prince Uba, TVC News, Umuahia.
Let's now talk to spokesman of the House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, who joins us live from Abuja. Honorable Kalu, we're told that the import of this judgment is such that Section 82, or rather 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act is now no longer existing, and that the National Assembly is no longer required to make any further amendments to this portion of the law. How are lawmakers and indeed the House of Reps responding to this?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, let me mention that it is unprofessional for the spokesperson of either the Senate or the House of Representatives to react to what we consider a social media report on a judgment or traditional media reports on a court judgment. The reason being that we are in the age of misinformation, fake news, and all the rest of them. The National Assembly is yet to be served with the judgment that is being referred to. We are not aware of this particular proceeding. We are not even sure if we are necessary parties to this particular court proceeding. And I think it's only fair for us to wait and be served with the judgment so that we ask relevant questions as to why we were not properly served if we are parties to this particular judgment, this particular court proceeding. And if not, we will now know what to discuss with regards to the content, the substance of the matter, or the technicalities around it. Because looking at section 66(1), section 107, 137, 181, that this was relied on, that is in conflict with what 8412 says. Speaking to that will be a misnomer. We have to wait until we get a copy of the judgment and see if we are necessary parties, what options are open to us. But the National Assembly is actually also feeling that, granted that this emanated from right proceeding without technical error, the speed of implementation as alleged by a press release that is circulating coming from the Attorney General, is what we are looking at as lawyers. And we're saying whether the decision that took place in Umuahia today, the enrolled order of the Federal High Court in Umuahia has been served on the Attorney General to enable him go into implementation immediately, or whether the office is relying on this social media report. So we are saying it is important for us to wait and see how all this plays out, because we know that as a court of first instance, there are rooms for any interested party to go exercise his right of appeal. And unless we are saying that this decision forecloses the right of appeal of the parties, if we are parties, because we're not seeing the processes.
I get your point, Honorable Kalu, and your position on waiting to be served. However, there are a few more things that we know. The Attorney General of the Federation has reacted, saying that the federal government will gazette the Electoral Act and indeed remove this contentious section as ordered by the court. What I'd like to ask you, however, is whether or not the provision of the Constitution in this regard is also under the purview of the ongoing constitutional review. And is that an area that lawmakers are going to be looking to going forward?
No, before even going to that, the question we should ask is whether the principles of separation of power is being upheld with such decision, which define the parameters of operation of the arms of government. Is it allowed for the court under any guise to take the responsibility of lawmaking to the executive instead of the legislature? The consequential order should have been to compel the National Assembly to amend or delete before pushing it into to print, but to have a consequential order that removes the job of lawmaking from the National Assembly and place it in the hands of the executive is something that calls for a review, because you cannot even add a punctuation to any act of parliament, any piece of legislation made by the parliament, without the input of the National Assembly. So in this case, you're saying delete a particular section. Executive should delete a particular section, which means it's an act of making the law that you are taking to the executive arm of government. So it's one of the things we will look at the time we get the true picture of this whole scenario. But
Honorable,
now, we will wait until we have a hard copy.
Let me just drop this.
Certified true copy.
The AGM
judgment.
The office of the AGM seemed to, be replying to your point by making reference back to the Constitution, Section 287 to be precise, that makes it a point of duty to oblige, or rather obey, every of such order coming from a federal high court and every of such courts. And it's why I called your attention to the Constitution. In this regard, they say it's the go-to for whether you are a lawmaker or a member of the executive.
No, there is no, it increases or activates the right of appeal by any interested party that is out to protect the supremacy of the Constitution that has empowered the arms of government to operate within their defined parameters. The act of lawmaking belongs to the parliament. If you are deleting, if you are editing, if you are rewriting, the consequential order should refer it to the National Assembly. They will carry out that particular amendment or rewriting and then push it out for printing. But it would be a very dangerous precedent if an incursion into the powers and responsibility of a National Assembly is encouraged by the courts in a constitutional democracy. But like I said, we cannot really comment on this until we see the true court judgment, the hard copy of the court judgment, review it and then know a position. But to foreclose appeal from interested party with the speed of implementation might be something that might cause wastage to government. For example, if somebody goes to appeal after you have printed, what happens to that? Let us wait until we see the judgment, then we'll take a position on that.
Well, we'll wait to hear the official position of the National Assembly in this regard. Spokesman, House of Representatives, Honorable Benjamin Kalu, thank you for talking to us tonight.
Thank you very much.
In a swift reaction to this development, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, says it will give effect to the court judgment ordering it to expunge Section 84, subsection 12 of the Amended Electoral Act. The AGF's position was contained in a statement signed by Special Assistant on Media and Public Relations, Umar Jibril Gwando. He further stated that part of the law will be treated accordingly and will be recognized by government printers in printing the Electoral Act. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission says former Governor of Anambra State, Willie Obiano, is still in its custody. The former governor was arrested on Thursday by operatives of the DSS at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, on his way to the United States few hours after handing over to his successor. Sources at the Anti-Corruption Agency say the former Anambra governor was arrested for alleged misappropriation of public funds, including 5 billion naira Shopi and 37 billion naira security votes that were withdrawn in cash. Part of the funds were also allegedly diverted to finance political activities in the state. In Lagos, TVC News correspondent Ivy Kano visited the EFCC office.
March the 17th will remain indelible in the mind of the ex-governor of Anambra State, Willie Obiano, as he did not only hand over to his successor, Professor Charles Soludo, but also a day that he was picked up at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport here in Lagos on his way out of the country to Houston in the United States. He's been governor for 8 years, and that has made it impossible for the commission to arrest him because he had immunity. Now that he has left the office, on that same day he was picked up, we gather that he's been on the watch list of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission for over 4 months while in office before his tenure ended. We also know that last year in November, the commission had written to the Nigerian immigration informing them to put the ex-governor on their watch list and get across to them anytime he's trying to leave the country. So that was actually what happened on Thursday. It was a collaboration between the Nigerian Immigration Service and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Earlier, there were reports that he had been released, but we can tell you from what we gathered that he's been moved to the Commission's headquarters in Abuja.
Away from that, members of Youth Parliament in Ondo State have urged the leadership of the Academic Staff Union of Universities to review the ongoing strike in the interest of the country's education system. The youths also challenged the federal government to meet the demands of the striking lecturers in the interest of the students. They made this appeal at a sitting in Akure, the state capital.
The strike embarked upon by members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, has paralyzed activities in universities across Nigeria. The lecturers, among other demands, want better funding of the education sector. This issue and many others came up for discussion at a sitting of the Ondo State Youth Parliament in Akure, the state capital. The youth want both parties in the industrial dispute to shift ground in the interest of the students. The Speaker of the Parliament, Smith Ikumakpayi, said the strike has crippled academic activities in the universities.
ASU and the federal government that they should come together, they should sit down and have a roundtable discussion on how to find a lasting solution to the demands of ASU. They should look into the demands, and ASU should also please compromise too. They might not get all what they want for the interest of the average student at home that's at the receiving end of their action.
Starting to look like a prevalent thing in Nigeria surrounding our educational system, where the government have to force lecturers, teachers to go on strike, affecting the education of this youth. It's really quite unfortunate, and we can only still continue to plead and look up to the government to find a way around.
The young parliamentarians also urge youth to take charge of the political space. They agree that more youths are venturing into politics, which they say should be given more push.
The monetization of election is the demonization of the youth. It forces the youth to the corner and ensures that they look for every means possible, especially those interested in the act of governance or leadership.
Workable policy that will be able to elevate, the standard of living of young people in this community. And I think that demography, young people, is a very critical segment of our society that we cannot afford.
Parliamentarians also agreed that aggressive participation in voter registration is of paramount importance for the young ones to take charge politically. Ayodeji Moradi, TVC News, Akure.
Well, moving on now to other matters, the federal government has warned licensed lottery companies in the country to pay their outstanding liabilities or risk revocation of their licenses. The Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, Senator George Akume, spoke at the official launch of the Back to School Jumpstart project in Lagos. The project, with the theme No School Left Behind in Surulere, was organized by the Office of the Speaker of the House of Representatives in collaboration with the National Lottery Trust Fund.
Presently, statistics put the number of deaths from the COVID-19 pandemic to more than 6 million. But statistics are scarce regarding how many children have dropped out of school due to the pandemic, especially in developing economies like Nigeria. Hence, the launch of the Jumpstart project in Lagos by the National Lottery Fund in collaboration with the Office of the Speaker, House of Representatives. The project aims to digitize teaching and learning process as well as inculcate the culture of basic hygiene in schools across the country.
To enable government to equip public schools with e-learning facilities that are to be launched in due course. To learn that over 40 junior and secondary schools in Surulere Federal Constituency will benefit from this intervention in the first phase of the program is heartwarming and commendable.
Experts believe the program will help to improve capacity of schools in the area of good hygienic practice through provision of basic sanitary materials and standard teaching and learning aids.
Decision by the federal government to establish the National Lottery Trust Fund is indicative of a government that recognizes the importance of lottery and gaming as a vehicle for enhancing the social well-being of its citizenry through investments in its various lottery good cause intervention projects.
Urge all licensees and permit holders to, without further delay, pay off their outstanding liabilities or risk revocation of their licenses and permits.
For the Speaker, House of Representatives represented at this occasion, government is committed to building better and stronger education system which will be resistant to eventualities of the new normal.
Is designed to mitigate the disadvantage caused by the lack of digital infrastructure in our public schools, as well as ensure that there are no breaks in teaching and learning in the event of future pandemics.
The agency also inaugurated vital medical equipment donated to Bajarandul Hospital, Mother and Care General Hospital to consolidate on other equipment earlier donated to Onikon Healthcare Center a few months ago. Ademola Lawrence, TVC News, Lagos.
More than 1,000 less privileged persons in Maiduguri have benefited from food, seedlings and cash assistance courtesy of the Wali of Borno. The humanitarian assistance is aimed at giving them a sense of belonging. TVC News' Jesse Tafida reports.
6 different locations within Maiduguri and Jere Local Council benefited from the humanitarian gesture, including the State Specialist Hospital, Kamburi Kura, Kamburi Ghana, and Fatima Ali Sharif Orphanage. Other State Specialist Hospital, patients at the pediatric ward benefited from cash assistance to enable them buy drugs and other medical items.
We need to identify ourselves as colleagues in humanity, our human colleagues before any other thing. We should always try and reach out to the downtrodden, those truly in need, those that cannot reach out. I often say, even if you don't have much, but if you have the privilege to reach out to someone and even ask, it's even a privilege. So we will keep doing that for as long as we live and whatever means we have.
Medical Director of the hospital and beneficiaries lauded the monarch for the gesture.
We are happy to have people like you in our midst that have been doing this. Is not the first time and this is not the second. So we are very happy for you.
She says, I never expected this today. My son has been sick for 5 days now. This support would go a long way in settling our medical bills. I am very grateful by this gesture. I'm delighted. I pray God to bless Wali for doing this. Food and cash assistance was also distributed to the blind in Maiduguri, as well as to the Fatima Ali Sharif Orphanage. The Wali of Borno also presented 500 different types of seedlings to be used by the less privileged as economic trees. The management of the State Specialist Hospital appreciate this gesture and are calling on other well-to-do individuals to come to the aid of the less privileged in the society so as to put a smile on their faces. Jesse Tafida, TVC News, Maiduguri.
Are you aware that each year recyclables save more than 700 million tons in global carbon emissions? But by 2030, this figure is expected to have increased to 1 billion tons. With that in mind, environmental advocates are urging for better ways of recycling, which will save more lives and the environment. Kemi Balogo reports.
It is Global Recycling Day, a day set aside to encourage people to think again about what is thrown away. This year is shifting focus to celebrate the recycling fraternity, those who put themselves on the front line to collect waste and recycle them during the multiple lockdowns.
To support improvement.
This school in the heart of the capital city is doing its own part to ensure that waste is used for the good of the students and not left to be harmful to the environment through the construction of this toilet.
We need to keep the world clean and the environment clean so that we won't have like issues with the environment.
I encourage, and I'll also put waste bins in every corner of my house so that it can be easier if you want to recycle anything rather than throwing it on the floor, and also be hygienic.
When you get these waste and you're able to segregate them properly, you'll be able to know which one you can recycle and they will be of use. Even in the school here, that is what we do.
Global Recycling Day was created to help recognize and celebrate the importance recycling plays in preserving the primary resources of the planet. Environmental advocates like Dorothy believe that recycling is one way to save the planet and secure its future.
Most of the waste we generate in our offices, in our homes, in our schools are majorly recyclable waste. I'm talking of paper, I'm talking of plastic and metal. So what we do now, instead of evacuating this waste to the dump sites, we train cleaners for free to segregate this waste using the color-coded bin, and when they segregate it, we evacuate it to a recycling company free of charge.
The day strives to urge world leaders that recycling must be a global issue and encourage people to think resourcefully and not waste. Kemi Balogun, TVC News, Abuja.
Nigerian Medical Association (FCT) is proposing an extension period for the disengagement of the public-private partnership arrangement between the Federal Capital Territory Administration and the current management of the Garki General Hospital, Abuja. They believe this will give room for a more effective, smoother and more humane transition for both the patients and more than 900 medical personnel that could be affected. Kemi Balogun has more.
Since the 1st of March this year, reactions have continued to trail the notice served to the management of the Garki General Hospital by the Federal Capital Territory Administration to vacate and hand over the facility. An agreement signed between the duo in 2007 has now elapsed after 15 years, but the ripple effect caused by the suddenness of this disengagement order has been termed as ill-timed. Today, the Medical Association, who are at the verge of losing hundreds of jobs, are lending their voice to this issue, calling for a reconsideration to the time frame given so that no one is left behind.
If there's a debt to be paid and is a reason for the termination notice, I'm sure they can sit down and come to some form of agreement. Because if you rent somebody's house, you're supposed to pay rent. And so, but my worry now is the tenants who have been working assiduously in the last 15 years in that facility, who have been holding forth when all the public hospitals have been on strike. And we all know that when all the public hospitals are on strike in FCT, Garki Hospital still works, still functions. And all of a sudden, you're asking them to pack their bags and go home within a short period.
I don't think 1 month is reasonable notice for a facility of that nature. And that even if it is also part of the agreement, looking at the facilities, we feel that using self-help will not be advisable. Because what happens if at the end of 1 month, they are unable to evacuate?
The group also wants the federal government and the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation to look into the present fuel crisis happening in the country in order to lessen the burden on doctors.
The situation has severely affected the practice of medicine. Health workers are now finding it increasingly difficult to get to their places of work to discharge their duties, not to mention the adverse effects on productivity.
Lawmakers on Thursday had resolved to ask the FCTA to stay action on the termination of the concession agreement, pending the intervention of the Committees on Privatization, Commercialization and Health Institutions on the matter. More than 100 doctors and thousands of patients could be affected if the FCTA goes through with the vacation order. Kemi Balogun, TVC News, Abuja.
Business Tonight, President of the Nigerian Council of Registered Insurance Brokers, Rotimi Edo, says the council will continue to strengthen ties with relevant agencies and institutions to deepen insurance penetration across the country, which will in turn improve its contribution to the group's GDP. Mr. Edo made this known at the unveiling of the council's mascot and logo in Lagos.
According to the National Bureau of Statistics, insurance penetration to Nigeria's gross domestic product remains at 0.5%. Similarly, according to the Nigeria Insurance Association, out of about 12 million vehicles registered, only 2.5 million have genuine insurance cover. This gathering of core professionals, practitioners and insurance brokers, including the regulator of the industry, is focused on strengthening and repositioning insurance broking as a critical element of the nation's ecosystem. For 60 years, the Nigerian Council of Registered Insurance Brokers has continued to build capacity while promoting professionalism across board.
The Nigerian Council of Registered Insurance Brokers has continued to deliver its promises to its member, and we can see that in the growth that we are experiencing in the insurance industry. We are taking a new leave to start cooperation in the maximum level, such that that cooperation will take us to the level of success. It will take the industry to the level of, being where it should be.
NCRIB and its members have continued to be the beautiful bride. So having a beautiful bride at 60 is quite a landmark achievement. And if you look at over the years, since 1962, when they started with the organization of that sector, of the intermediary in the insurance sector, it has never been the same again.
The doyen of the insurance profession is also here, and he had the honor of unveiling the mascot and logo of the council. He gave a brief history of the success of the council in the past 60 years, whilst agreeing with other respondents that proper regulatory framework, improved oversight will help deepen insurance penetration across the country.
It was a great idea then, but honestly it has exceeded all my expectations. He had always been the rallying point for insurance practitioners. And I'm sure that his soul is resting in perfect peace. He'll be looking down on us, and posterity too will thank him for bringing this great idea. And we will thank all his successors who have over the years been nurturing the NCRIB.
The Nigerian Council of Registered Insurance Brokers came into existence in 1962, saddled with the responsibility of providing a platform for members to maximize their potential using relevant trainings, information technology, and synergies to attain its objectives.
The Association of Chartered Certified Accountants has called for more involvement of women in Nigeria's economic development in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal 5, geared towards achieving gender equality. Blessed Amonase reports.
Gender inequality has over the years remained an issue in the sub-Saharan African region, causing a limitation to the significant contribution of women to the economic development of the region. In Nigeria, the share of female in the total employment figure has marginally increased over the past decades, as the participation of females in the services-oriented sectors have contributed major improvement, leading to a remarkable contribution to the country's economic performance.
When we look at economic performance,
gender equality has continued to lead conversations at different women's fora. And this gathering, put together by the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, ACCA, is another milestone towards breaking the bias.
For diversity to work its magic, therefore, there must be inclusion. Without inclusion, the creative spark, I submit, is quenched. The importance, therefore, of closing the gender economic gap, and I would like to say that the gender gap itself is probably the largest challenge of inclusion that the world faces today.
We believe there's considerable more that women in Nigeria can contribute to economic growth, but we just need to create the platform and the enabling environment for them to be able to do that.
Speaking further on the theme of the conference, these participants bear the minds on the importance of engaging more women in the quest for growth and development, just as the nation prepares for the 2023 election.
We need to open up spaces for women. We need to get women elected to ensure that we can drive policies that focus on socioeconomic development and ensure that all of society are included in key functions of the economy.
I think we have statistics that show that from 2016, that when excluding women means that we're losing about $95 billion, in terms of potential. So it's very clear to all of us that we should include every member of the society, especially women, to ensure we achieve our full potential.
The take-home at the end of the dialogue includes how accountants, with emphasis on women, can improve their skills to explore opportunities associated with bridging the gender gap in economic participation. Blessed Omonose, TVC News, Lagos.
Telecommunication service providers under the aegis of the Association of Licensed Telecoms Operators of Nigeria have now announced that a tariff review for telco services may happen if the rise in the price of diesel is sustained. Chairman of the association, Gbenga Adebayo, who made this known in a statement, explains that the sector has already been impacted by the current hike in diesel prices and scarcity of the product, making the operating environment for telcos tougher. Mr. Adebayo also assures that the operators will continue to ensure there are no service disruptions in the nation, but urged the government to urgently intervene to ease off the high cost of running business in the country at this precarious time. The price of diesel has tilted towards 850 naira per litre and is continuing to increase on a daily basis. Share prices at the Nigerian exchange came down again as 4-day losses hit hard on equities values. Effiong Gekop reports on markets.
Securities trading at the stock market closed the week negative following declining prices in trade sectors. Weak prices came on the back of losses incurred by some mid-cap firms. Apart from the banks, which have been showing scorecards to the market in relation to 2021 financial year, other key sectors stayed with weak and unattractive transactions. Huge trade losses came to oil and gas marketer MRS, as it was down by nearly 10%. Ikeja Hotels, Wapik Insurance, Mutual Benefit Assurance and Access Bank didn't fare better in their weekend deals. Manufacturing group of PZ made high level of gain calculated above 9%, while Royal Exchange Assurance, Niger Insurance and ICO Insurance ended business with average price gains. The volume of shares traded hit nearly 600 million units, just as the trade value moved close to 4 billion naira. Effiong Gekop, TVC News, Lagos.
The stock markets took a breather today after several days of sizable gains, while commodities were set on edge by the lack of progress in Russia-Ukraine peace negotiations. Oil rose sharply and back over $100 overnight, and Brent crude futures were up another 2% to $108.73 in early trade. Commodity exporters' currencies rose with it. China markets today eased into the end of one of the wildest weeks in decades. Hong Kong's Hang Seng followed its worst session in more than 6 years with its biggest two-day rally since 1998 after China's top financial policy maker promised policy easing and a gentler approach to market-sensitive reform in future. Investors now await actions to follow his words, and today Hang Seng opened 1% lower, while the mainland blue chip CSI 300 was down 0.5% in early trade. Oil prices on the international market extended the rally today at the end of a thought volatile week of trade after slim progress in peace talks between Russia and Ukraine raised the specter of tighter sanctions and a prolonged disruption to oil supply. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude hit a 2.95% price surge to trade at $106 per barrel. Brent crude now sells at $109.10 per barrel, registering an upward price margin of 2.26%. Borno Light's performance is still traded in the red territory with a price decline of 1.49%, selling at $97.45 per barrel. For the OPEC basket, crude oil dealers offer $104.10 per barrel with an uptake of 1.17%.
Well, events are lined up for the Nugu Games and it will start this weekend. Host University, the University of Lagos, have started laying the track as the Nigeria University Games begins this weekend. TV Sports correspondent Solomon Ajiziogu spoke with the track experts at the Unilag Sports Center.
The last time the University of Lagos hosted the Nuga Games was in 1998. Back then, the track was ready a whole 9 months before the games. But the pitch was the last to be ready for the competition.
You know, at that time we didn't have a swimming pool, so as an addition we have a standard Swiss timing swimming pool. So there has been a lot of improvement from the 98 Nuga to date.
We're not always in a hurry to do things, though we would have loved to do it earlier, but you know, the way things are, we take things the way it comes.
The Unilag Nuga Games appears to have faced the challenge of funding as the largest contingent ever of student athletes converge on Lagos.
Availability of funds would be like a reference point here. The previous time there was adequate fund budgeted for the event, but in this case there's no fund for this, you know, major, this special event.
24 years after, Unilag is back hosting the games, and this time the pitch has long been ready, but the track is yet to be laid for the athletics event, even on the first day of the games. With athletes gearing up for action on day one, the athletics track experts arrive to begin work. They are sure that the quality of the track to be laid in Unilag would have a durable lifespan of up to 15 years.
If all the material is here, we should be able to lay this within 5 days. Your finished coat may not be here on time, but your subcoat, your black coat, and everything will be done within 5 days. When we get the top coat on it and the red coat on it and it marked, you should have absolutely no problem in any way within 10 to 15 years.
The more than 10,000 athletes and officials from almost 100 universities can now begin the games while they await the laying of the track. Solomon Ajiziogu, TVC News, Lagos.
The Nigeria Professional Football League would reach its midpoint this weekend when Week 19 matches are played across all centers in the country. Abia Warriors take on Katsina United. Enugu Rangers will host Lobby Stars Football Club of Makurdi, while MFM travel to play the Nazi Millionaires Atlant Football Club of Owerri. And on Sunday, Dakada Football Club will play Niger Tornadoes. Canopilas take on Gombe United. Plateau United face Sunshine Stars. Remo Stars welcome Kwara United. Rivers United take on another team, while Enyimba Football Club will travel to play Wiki Tourist Football Club of Bauchi. But then it's Shooting Stars against Nasarawa United. The UEFA Champions League quarter-final draw has been concluded, and reigning European and World Club champions Chelsea will face 13-time European champions and Spanish giants Real Madrid. English champions Manchester City will play Spanish side Atletico Madrid, while another team from England, Liverpool, take on Portuguese champions Benfica. German Bundesliga side Bayern will take on the third Spanish side in the competition, Villarreal. And in the semi-finals, the winner of the Chelsea versus Real Madrid tie will take on Atletico Madrid or Manchester City, while Benfica or Liverpool will play either Villarreal or Bayern Munich. The two-leg quarterfinals take place on the 5th to the 6th of April and the 12th to the 13th of April. In the UEFA Europa draw, West Ham United have been drawn against French side Olympique Lyon in the quarterfinals, while Rangers will take on Braga and Barcelona face German outfit Frankfurt. The remaining last 8 clash will see an enticing matchup between Bundesliga side Leipzig and Serie A outfit Atalanta. West Ham United could meet Barcelona in a mouth-watering semi-final should the pair prevail in their respective quarterfinals, while a victory for Rangers will see them come up against either German side Leipzig or Italian side Atalanta. There is only one English Premier League match this weekend as the English FA Cup takes centre stage across the English channel to continental Europe. It is the El Clasico on Sunday in Spain. We have a preview of what to expect across Europe. Arsenal will be hoping to put their 2-0 loss to Liverpool behind as they seek to consolidate their top 4 place against the impressive Aston Villa. Japanese fullback Takahiro Tomiyasu will return from injury to play Villa as the Gunners parade a fully fit squad. Villa are without defender Lucas, who is out due to a muscle injury, and Callum Chambers could face his former club after recovering from a facial injury.
He was fine. Again, he had a little issue before the game, but he's been fine the last 2 days, so hopefully he can get now some consistency and momentum. Well, try to recover well mentally, physically, eat well, sleep well, and yesterday just spend time recovering and making sure that everybody is fit today for train to get 1 day to prepare the match and be ready tomorrow.
There are 2 matches on Sunday after the postponement of the Watford versus Everton clash. Leicester City host Brentford, and Tottenham Hotspur and West Ham United square up in a London derby. It is the El Clasico weekend in Spain as leaders Real Madrid host Barcelona on Sunday, and 4 other matches hold earlier on Sunday before Madrid take on Barca later in the evening. There are 4 games in the Spanish La Liga on Saturday. Deportivo Alaves play Granada, Elche host Valencia, Osasuna square up against Levante, while Rayo confronts Atletico Madrid. In the Italian Serie A, Internazionale Milano play Fiorentina. AC Milan travel to play Cagliari, and on Sunday, Empoli tackle Verona. Juventus host Salernitana. Roma play Lazio at Stadio Olimpico, while Bologna take on Atalanta.